Welcome to the Douglas County Chamber Greystone Power Luncheon. I'm Greg Williams with Kaiser Permanente and your 2016 Chairman of the Board. I would like to invite our sponsor, John Sell with Georgia Power, a member of our 2006 Chairman's Club, to come forward for a few remarks. And I would also say, give John another hand. Today is his birthday.
Thanks, Frank. 72, right?
Yeah. However old you want me to be, Ron. So, first of all, the jewelry bags on your table there, it's not really jewelry. It's power stuff. You have a light bulb to go plug into your laptop computer, and then you have an adapter for the wall to plug in your electronics and so forth. So that's a little gift from Georgia Power. Today, where we're doing a legislative wrap-up, I'd like to thank all of our legislators, first of all, for all the work that they did at the session. I know it was a lot of late nights. There was one bill that didn't get a lot of publicity, but was very important for Georgia Power, and that was the expansion of the Spencer law, which is the move-over law in Georgia. The legislators saw fit to go ahead and add in utility workers to that. And this month is National Lineman Appreciation Month. Yesterday was National Lineman Appreciation Day. The work that you did to protect our linemen on the side of the road says a lot about your appreciation for them. So we thank you for that. As far as Georgia Power is concerned, we've got several issues that you probably heard about in the newspaper. The first is our rates are going to stay the same for another 3 years, as we're not going to do a rate case this year. Part of that was an agreement with the Public Service Commission that they approved the merger where we are acquiring AGL resources. So that went through, and that'll continue to progress. Also, you probably have read about Plant Vogel. Plant Vogel is about 60% complete at this point, adding 2 new units there. When those 2 units are added to the 2 existing units, it'll be one of the largest, if not the largest, power plant in the country. That particular project will be online in 2019 and 2020, and the actual impact to the ratepayers will be less than what we originally projected when we started this whole process. So instead of 12, 13% rate impact, it's going to be 6 to 7% on rates. So that's a positive, and that'll be a long-time facility for the state of Georgia for economic growth in the future. Also, you may have heard that ash ponds are out there and that we need to do something with them. Georgia Power has announced a plan that we're going to take care of the ash ponds at several of our older plants in the next 2 years. Some of the active plants, we're going to have a plan for to get them closed within the next 10 years. And then Plant Shira will be the last one that we close, and it'll be somewhere in the 10 to 14 year mark. But as far as ash is concerned, one thing that people don't understand or may not know is at least 50% of the ash that we have at our plants, we recycle for things like wallboard, concrete, and other road surfaces. So a lot of what we have, we already recycle. Those are the major issues that Georgia Power has going on at this point. Once again, we're very proud to sponsor with the Chamber, to sponsor this luncheon in particular. And we again thank the legislators and the Lieutenant Governor for all the work that you guys have done trying to make our state better. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. At this time, I would like to ask John Stone with the Kiwanis Club of Douglas County to come forward and lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Y'all are well trained. You get up before you're told to. Before we do our invocation, I always like to give a couple of words of wisdom, and since this is a business and community, the quote today comes from, and I'll tell you later, it says, "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success." This is a quote from Henry Ford, a fairly successful individual in our country's history. Speaking of working together, the local group will have National Day of Prayer on May the 5th here in this facility at 7:30. It is co-sponsored by the United Way and the Shoebox Program for victims of family violence, so we encourage you to get involved in that also. And so that gets us all working together. You need to come out to the event. Have a good guest speaker. Speaker is going to be Ricky Dobbs. He's a local high school, Douglas County High School graduate, graduated from Annapolis, played football there. He is now currently serving his country in the U.S. Navy. At this time, while we pray, let's remember our young men and women who are serving our country that give us the protection so that we can assemble here in freedom of choice. At this time, let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless this group here and for the work that they do in this community and the work that they do in our state and the work that they do in our nation. Watch over them as they continue to do good work in our community, and watch over all the people of our community so they can be safe. We also want to send out a special prayer for those individuals that were involved in the disasters in Ecuador and Japan from the earthquakes. Watch over those people and help the people who are trying to help them so that they can be successful and recover from this event. As we go through our day, we want you to bless us and bless this community, and especially bless the young men and women that are serving our country, either at home or abroad, so they can return home safely to us and be a productive part of our community. In your name, amen. Let's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would like to invite State Senator Mike Dugan to come forward and introduce today's guest.
John, just to follow up, because it is your birthday, and I'm going to double check, but I think the government signed into law the move over bill this morning. So we told him it was your birthday and that was important to you, so he came through. My honor today is to introduce a guy that's been a successful businessman. He was by all accounts, an extremely effective state senator during his time in the Senate. And in 2006, he did something that nobody else had ever done before. He became the first Republican elected to lieutenant governor, and so for the state of Georgia. So, we're proud of him for that. I obviously didn't know him before I got elected to the Senate, and when I moved into the Senate, I got to see these areas that were his passion areas. The college and career academies are way up on his focus list. He understands the importance it is to have a multitude of opportunities for our youth to develop at the high school level, and as they feed into the technical college system in Georgia. We have to have a wide variety of opportunities so we can have the most successful state we can possibly have. Thanks to Casey's leadership, Georgia now has 34 college and career academies, including our own CCI here in Douglasville. Casey's leadership has been recognized beyond the state of Georgia as well. After being named one of the 100 most influential Georgians, Casey was one of 4 public servants in the country to be honored by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools with a Champion for Charters Award. Please join me in welcoming my friend and our Lieutenant Governor, Casey Cagle.
Well, thank you all very, very much. Y'all have a seat. I know most of you, after that long introduction, you just wanted to stretch your legs probably, but it is really great to be with you here in Douglas County, and what a wonderful honor to be back. I want to first of all just say a special thank you to the Chamber for what you do, and obviously Callie, who leads your organization so beautifully as well. Also, to your mayor, Rochelle, thank you very much for being here. Your chairman, Tom, as well. I've been dear friends for a long time, and we appreciate the great leadership that you are giving at the local level, and all the other council members and those that are serving at your local community. And your delegation, I will tell you that you've got a remarkable delegation both in the House. You know, the House isn't quite like the Senate, as you might imagine, but, you know, they're great individuals and doing remarkable work. And your House delegation I do get to work with on a regular basis. Obviously, I deal with your Senate members much more frequently, and we appreciate Senator Donzella James, who scored a huge victory this year with the incorporation or the potential opportunity to incorporate South Fulton, and clearly Senator Dugan. Senator Dugan has been just a wonderful friend, a great champion, a guy, I tell you, that I love because he is an old school individual. So his word is his bond. If he says, this is what I'm going to do, you don't have to ask him the second time. He's going to do it. And I appreciate very much the way he conducts business and the passion by which he goes about engaging. And so many other friends that are here in the room today as well. And I don't want to start naming names or I'd get in trouble. But I do want to make you aware of something that I think is probably far more important than anything else that we're going to talk about this morning. Notice how the room got real quiet. I'm a grandfather. and let me tell you, 6 months, actually almost 6 months ago, my oldest son and his wife had our first grandbaby, and it's a little girl, and her name is Everett Grace. Now, there's a couple things that I want to point out to you that I think is very important. I have 3 boys, and everyone told me that you love your kids, but you fall in love with your grandkids, okay? There could not be a truer statement out there, all right? It did not take any time for me to fall in love with her, and she is the most beautiful thing ever imagined. And I will tell you, too, that, I mean, you know, some of y'all laugh. I have to put her in beauty contests all the time. I've got all these other grandfathers that come up to me and talking about their grandbaby and how beautiful and cute and all of this. And then I just pull out my phone and I flop it down and she wins every time. It's the most amazing thing, you know. I don't know how I got the most beautiful grandbaby in the world, but I'm telling you, I do. Self-proclaimed or not. But anyway, it really is a joy. You know, actually, Senator Dugan and others had asked that I give you a little bit of a legislative update. But I was with the chairman's group, and I was also with Ken Bernard, and anytime you're with Ken, you know what that's like. But you know, I found out it was John's birthday and all of that, so I was like, you know, let's not talk about the legislative update. That's boring. You know, let's talk about something that might be a little bit more interesting and a little bit more fun, particularly where you guys are today. You know, when I think of Douglas County, the first thing that comes to my mind really is opportunity. And you're a community that in proximity to the metropolitan area or Atlanta is second to none. And your chance to make something great in your community is right here at your fingertips. And I want to pause for a moment to take you down a little journey across memory lane. You know, because oftentimes, sometimes we don't think about our past, but our past helps us to remember, and it keeps us connected. But it also gives us reason for hope and optimism. And when I think back in the 70s, when Birmingham and Atlanta were approximately the same size in population, there wasn't a whole lot of difference. But during that time, the leaders in Atlanta took on the largest investment of its day, little place called Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Airport. Today, it just happens to be the busiest airport in the world. And there is no comparison between Atlanta and Birmingham, except in football, obviously. But we stole their defensive coordinator, and all that's going to change. But I want you to think about the decisions that were made, the seed that was planted, and the harvest that we, you and I, get to experience today. It took individuals of courage. It took people that were willing to make an investment in the opportunity of a future return that maybe they might never get to experience, but it was an investment for a generation to come. Those are the things that should excite us. When I think about that port in Savannah, I remember Zell Miller, who was governor at the time, said, I want to turn that sleepy little port down there in Savannah that really isn't doing a whole lot of business into a true economic engine for our entire state. And he said, I got a vision. And my vision is I'm going to go out and I'm going to recruit the big box retailers, those that are importing all these goods domestically. I'm going to go get them and have them locate in the Savannah region. He says, because if I am successful in doing that, those ships will have no other choice but to come to our seaport in Savannah. Today, it's the fastest growing port in the nation, having an economic impact that is second to none in the Southeast. These are the things that we have to be focused on, things that give us courage, things that paint a vision for what the future can look like. Even going back to 1996, which was a crucial year for us because we were successful in landing the Olympics. The Olympics didn't just happen. You don't just like put your hand up and say, we'd like to have it. You got to go get it. It takes an organization second to none. And I think about MARTA. Now, when I say that, many people in this room are going to say, I've got a distaste in my mouth for MARTA. But guess what? MARTA has a role. I submit to you that we would not have received the 1996 Olympics had we not had MARTA. It's an important piece. Sometimes they're not valued appropriately. Sometimes we don't create an entity that gives us the greatest degree of return, and we have to change that. But we still have to always be pushing the bar to greatness. And my challenge to you as a community is to always be focused on ways in which we can improve. Being stagnant, being part of the status quo does not get us where we want to be. The things that I have been focused on have been things that are focused around education. And the reason that I've been focused on education is because I believe at my very core that education is what drives the economy, not the reverse. And it's because, not only because I was a businessman, but more importantly, when I sit down with CEOs across the state and abroad, they don't talk about necessarily, water policy, infrastructure. You know, the number one thing that's on their mind is, how are you going to ensure me the quality workforce that I'm going to need to compete? That's what they want. And if you can demonstrate that, you can have remarkable success. The problem is, we've got an educational system, and I speak of this in a universal way, that is geared to a one-size-fits-all model, trying to tell every student, you've got to go down this path to get that baccalaureate degree that not every student is motivated or challenged by. You see, I believe that if we're going to create a robust economy, if Douglas County is going to be all that it can be, then we've got to get outside our mold. We've got to think bigger, and we've got to create niches in the marketplace that distinguish and separate us from everyone else. And if you commit to a workforce that is second to none, it will be no different than what occurred at the Port of Savannah. They will have no other choice but to come to your community. As many of you know, I created this grant process that allowed you to have the College and Career Academy here, but now we've got 38 of those across the state. I was down in one of our rural communities, and I use this as an example because I think it is very fitting. It was a regional career academy, a college and career academy, and there were 3 different entities that were involved. Well, as you can imagine, there's something called turf wars that occur, right? And they wanted to bicker, they wanted to fight, they wanted to talk about, who was going to pay for what, and why am I paying this much and you're paying that? I can't afford to put these kids on the bus and move them this far. All these reasons, right? Of why they could not make this college and career academy a success. And I told them a similar story that I told you. And I said, please, I'm begging you, tear down the walls of barriers. Forget about the problems. Focus on the solution. And most importantly, focus on the need of the child for once. And I told him, I said, I promise you, if you will do this, if you will commit yourself and give it 110%, this will be an economic engine for your community, if you want it to be, and if you're invested in it and you are giving it all you have. So they still bickered, they still fought, but they stood the course. And I promised them that if they will do it, they would have a very large economic announcement in its future. 6 months later, literally 6 months later, they landed 600 manufacturing jobs. That's the good thing, but it gets even better. That German company that located in that community invested $1.2 million in their college and career academy and created their own training facility and invested in that. As a result of a past economic development trip that I did, I was speaking to an automobile supplier conference, and they told me that we need you to have an apprenticeship, a German apprenticeship model. Today, because of this German company and others in this space, we have a 3-year German apprenticeship system that is in place here in Georgia. And some may say, well, why do we want to adopt the German? Because we are an international community. And you know what? If the Germans want their employees trained a certain way, let's accommodate that, because those individuals are going to make $50,000 and $60,000 a year. And that is building not only a better life for themselves, but a better life for their community. And these are the things, breaking down barriers, not allowing the obstacles to stand in the way, but being focused on a vision for the future and saying, this is where our community is going, and we're going to be united to get there. I, as the Lieutenant Governor, I can't set public policy that's going to make your educational system the best in the world. I can't set public policy that's going to make your water system or infrastructure be the best in the world. You have to do it. You're our partners. You are the backbone of what makes our community and state so great. And I want to encourage you in doing that. the last thing I want to touch on is a similar story. Actually, I could go on and on. How much time do I have? No. Is a lot of times people think, well, what do we want to be? As a community, who do we want to become? Do we want to be strong in manufacturing? I will tell you, you can be anything you want to be if you build the workforce and you bring the partners to the table and you make them feel ownership in the process. That's a critical piece, ownership. Because when you own it, it sinks or swims based on your effort. That's an important piece. I was in the UK. I was in Ireland. I was in Ireland and I got to the hotel room and had to, get changed into a suit, and I just got flown in and I needed an iron. I called to the desk. Boom. No longer that it felt like I'd hung up the phone did I immediately have an iron delivered to my room. I get over to France doing the same thing, called down, asked for an iron. 10 minutes, no iron. Called again, 10 minutes, no iron. I never got an iron in France, okay? I got back to Ireland and I said, what's the deal? Why don't I get an iron over there? And the guy said something so profound that I've never forgotten. Is he said, in Ireland, which is very different than France, we are not too far removed from our agricultural roots. Now think about that for a moment. If you are dependent upon what you grow off the land, you don't get to sleep in the morning. You don't get to lay out of work. You've got to have a work ethic that is second to none. That's the beauty of the South. Ag is still our largest economy. But listen, it's about the work ethic, that who we are. We're people that are going to give all we have each and every day. I was interviewed not long ago by a paper, and they wanted that Atlanta fish wrapper, not like the good paper y'all have got here. But this lady was interviewing me about college and career academies, and I was going on and on because I get excited about them. And she says, man, I really wish we would have had those around when my kids were in school. And she says, my daughter, she was unbelievable. She was in AP classes. She was just remarkable in her studies. She ended up getting a full scholarship to an Ivy League school. And then she says, but my son, he barely got through. He struggled, and he finally had to, just get a skill, go into vocation. And when she said that, it flew all over me. Now, y'all, we're all in the South, and, some of y'all may not be from the South, but flew all over me. You understand what that means, But it just flew all over me. And when it did, I told the reporter, I says, I know you probably didn't mean it this way. I said, but let me ask you this question. I said, if you were sick today and you needed to go to the doctor and you got an appointment, you went to the doctor and you were just so sick, but he gave you what you needed, made you well, all of a sudden you came back home, you started feeling better, the next day you go to work, you were so thankful for the doctor and for what they did, but you go to work, you come home from work that next day, you walk in the door, you open it up, and boom, you notice that a pipe had burst and water's coming all over the place and just ruining your house. And I said, immediately you call up the plumber. The plumber runs over, gets the water shut off, gets everything back to order. I said, my question to you, which is most important? The doctor yesterday or the plumber today? They're of equal importance, right? I mean, how do you place a value on that? The truth is the plumber's making more money than the doctor is, okay? I mean, there's a fact. But the point I am making is we as a society have to get back to where we celebrate all work. All work. I can't do my job and you can't do your job if we don't have all the pieces coming together to make the train run on time. little company in Azalea, in Valdosta, Georgia, named Azalea Healthcare. They were incubated out of Valdosta State. They were in, or are in, the health IT space. They created a new program, and because of their small business incubator, they were able to get the help that they needed, and they were able to launch their business. Well, naturally, as they began to find success, they needed access to capital. They needed venture capital to go to the next level. And the challenge was not to get the capital to some degree. It was that they would have to move their company out of Valdosta. They didn't want to move from Valdosta. They wanted to stay in Valdosta. They wanted to stay in that downtown community and help revitalize those buildings and become a part of that community and part of the employment base. We started a little thing called Invest Georgia. It's a $100 million commitment to help companies just like Azalea Healthcare to grow and to be successful in our state, and not only in our state, but in the community by which they want to reside. Today, 70% of all credit cards processed in America are processed right here in Georgia. Think about that. You can be manufacturing, you can be in IT, you can be in any space you want to be in. It's a question of, can you put the strategic plan in place to make it become a reality? I believe you can, and I know you can. And I know your local delegation is eager and ready to help you, and I'm eager and ready to help you as well. And I know the good mayor and the chairman are going to do their part along with your chamber, and we look forward to brighter and greater days ahead. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Cagle, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. As a thank you for speaking, a contribution will be made in your name to the Chamber Board Scholarship, which funds a scholarship for a graduating high school senior. Thanks again to Georgia Power for sponsoring today's luncheon, and to Greystone Power for their naming sponsorship. Have a great rest of your day.